So for the last couple of years, the Federal Reserve has been buying U.S. bonds to the tune of about $85 billion a month. And you do understand that the only reason that they're buying them is that nobody else would buy them at that price, which means that they're worth much less than what the Federal Reserve is buying them at. That's just a fact, right? And there's two reasons for this. One is to maintain the price of bonds in the international market, and the other is to inject lots of money to inflate the money supply within the U.S. economy. Now, of course, the Fed doesn't have $85 billion. It just makes up the money, and so the money is just magically being created. You know what, for you and I, would pretty much be called counterfeiting, for the government is called sound fiscal policy. Why is this important? Well, the Federal Reserve over the summer has been saying to everyone, don't sweat it, brothers and sisters. The U.S. economy is rebounding strongly. If the Federal Reserve says that the U.S. economy is improving but continues its bond stimulus, money inflating buyback scheme, then what it's saying is that it needs to continue to provide this Krugman slash Keynesian slash cocaine up the eyeball kind of stimulus to the U.S. economy, which means it's not growing. It's not strong, right? If the pain is going away, you really should lower the morphine drip, right? You know those little tomato plants, you put these little sticks and you have them grow up the side of the sticks. That's right. If it's a mighty oak, it doesn't need the stick. If you really feel the stick needs to be there, but you say it's a mighty oak, then you're clearly insane. And this is, of course, what people are trying to avoid, is the actual insanity of the people in charge of the system. The bond buying programs have helped push up stock prices and kept interest rates low, making it easier for borrowers to take out home and auto loans. Oh, yes, that worked out so well last time, didn't it? Keeping interest rates artificially low just worked out wonderfully. Now, why does the government want interest rates to be low? Well, of course, it does stimulate a certain amount of artificial economic activity, which then collapses, as all bubbles do, when interest rates rise up again, which is what happened in the housing market in 2007, 2008. The interest rates, which had been kept artificially low, ended up popping up and wiped out a lot of people who had home and auto loans. And the other reason it wants to keep interest rates low, of course, is that the government has $17 trillion worth of debt now, and if interest rates move by even a point, it will do huge amounts to wipe out any kind of remote possibility of fiscal solvency on the part of the state. Like one of the reasons why Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s in England pushed very hard for privatization and lowered government spending was because the interest rates at that time were about 15%. And now they're down at like 1 and 2% in England because all the central banks are working like crazy to keep the interest rates low. What happens when you keep the interest rates low, of course, is that nobody wants to save. They're keeping the interest rates low partly by pumping all this money into the economy, so that there's more money looking for people to borrow it, which means that the price of borrowing money goes down. So they push all this money, which means that inflation goes up at the same time as whatever you're getting paid for putting your money in some kind of savings bond goes down, which means that it stimulates consumption in the here and now at the expense of the seed capital for capital improvements down the road, right? So the more people save, the more money gets invested in improving worker productivity, building new plants, research and development, and so on. When the government pushes the interest rates low, people stop saving and they start spending. That looks really good on paper for the current copper politicians who aren't really worried about the economic productivity of the American worker 10 or 15 years from now, but this is what it depends on, these savings, maybe even 5 years from now. They just want to get through the next election. And so they love stimulating consumption in the here and now, and damn the consequences, right? As Keynes said, in the long run, we're all dead. Well, they may be, but my child won't be, so it's kind of important. So these are the people who are in charge of your life. I mean, the economy is your life. If you don't have access to money, or if inflation hits really hard and wipes out your savings, then your life is kind of ruined. If all the misallocation of capital that comes from the government constantly playing whack-a-mole with all its financial problems and overspending, if that causes no jobs to be created, you can't get a job or you lose your job, your life is in tatters. What it means is that the people in charge of the Federal Reserve, who said throughout the summer that they were going to stop this program pretty much and that the economy was doing better, they were either completely wrong about the state of the U.S. economy, or they were lying. Either way, isn't it kind of terrifying?